Welcome back, guys. Okay, for you guys who don't know that much about what's going on out here in the court systems and with the people taking back their national status and their state national status and, all this stuff, there's a lot of things that, that are happening in the realm of law right now. And people are learning how to take their power back from the admiralty courts. And yes, I was... In a previous video, I did mention David Steele. It's actually David Strait. Someone did correct me and reminded me about that. I got some names confused because I follow so many different people. But I'm going to put this little tidbit out here because this can help a lot of people. And I do not offer legal advice. I do not offer any sort of lawful remedies. I'm just someone who shares information for others to consider. So as we go through this, I am going to leave this little link in the description box for everyone and anyone who's interested in, I don't know, maybe getting out of some traffic tickets or any kind of violations or anything, because these court systems out here, they're actually operating under admiralty law, guys. And we can win because admiralty law is underneath common law. Common law is the law of the land, and common law sits right beneath God. And the only way we are ever going to get our power back is when we educate ourselves about these laws, because we were never taught in any school unless you go to law school. And then you learn how to do legal stuff, which is part of admiralty law. Anyhow, we're not going to get into the ins and outs of it. I'm just going to go through this little website right here, this little gem and jewel that I came across. Because, sometimes we get traffic tickets and we need to just go and tell them who we are and what we do. Because your all caps name on your driver's license and anything from any bill or corporate, entity out here, when they do all caps, you're basically dead. And they're just declaring it as so, even though you may be living. Well, there's a whole story behind it, but I'm just going to go through this real quick. Again, no legal advice here, just pointing out some things, sharing is caring. Okay, here we go. This is livingintheprivate.blogspot.com, and it's strategies for court. So living in the private is the name of the website. Educate yourself, ask questions, verify everything. This is actually some information that was handed out by a retired judge. Okay, strategies for court. Avoid their courts whenever possible. This is from Judge Dale. He knew the system. So these American courts, they fall under admiralty jurisdiction. This is how they've gotten us. They've gotten us on the hook for all their taxes and stuff, and we consent when we sign their contracts. No more signing contracts. Guys, learn how to sign those contracts and you will do just fine. Again, this is just for entertainment purposes only. I just want to remind everybody that I am not a legal person or a lawful person or an attorney or a judge or anything. This is for fun and games. All right. These are pseudo courts or fictions and simply are corporate administrative offices designed to resemble courts, and all of their judges are simply executive administrators designed to resemble judges. In other words, they're fake. The purpose of these pseudo corporate courts is only to settle contract disputes. And since George Washington's government was military in structure, if either party refuses to participate, these courts cannot become involved and the dispute is dead in the water. My use of the term dead in the water is not a canard, because these pseudo courts are unconstitutional courts of admiralty, the international law of the sea. And they were all set up during that whole thing when they set up the Federal Reserve Act. And they basically bankrupted this country and took over. And that's why we don't call it the USA anymore, United States of America. They've been calling it US for a long time because it's a corporation. And I've known this for probably 30 years, but I have not really acted on anything because I was always lending caution to this kind of stuff, because you can get in trouble. But if you know your ins and outs and you stand on your rights, then nothing can really affect you. So this website, this is short and sweet and to the point without having to go into a lot of detail. That's what I liked about it. So the pseudo judges of these pseudo courts have no powers without the consent of both the plaintiff and the defendant. And in every case, the judge must determine that he has consent, personam and subject matter jurisdiction, before he can act or access the Cesta Que Trust. Yeah, Q. They say Q. I'm sorry. I do speak Spanish sometimes, or at least read it. Cesta Que Trust. That is your bond, your birth certificate when you were born. They took out money on you, your name, which they declared dead. They declared you dead and lost at sea. And I'm not going to get into the technicalities of it because I know some stuff, but I don't try to teach anybody anything. So anyway, note, all tradable securities must be assigned in a CUSIP number, which is your birth certificate, it's your social security, before they can be offered to investors. And I've looked mine up, and man, there's a lot of companies that are using my CUSIP number. Birth certificates and social security applications are converted into government securities, assigned a CUSIP number, grouped into lots, and then are marketed as a mutual fund investment. Upon maturity, the profits are moved into a government Cesta Que Trust. And if you are still alive, the certified documents are reinvested. It is the funds contained in the Cesta Que Trust that the judge, clerk, and county prosecutor are really after or interested in. And this is true. They want to make you pay and pay again, basically, because your trust pays for everything in this existence. This is what I've been learning, is that your trust is basically, you could just put your signature on your mortgages, and that's it. That's all you would have to do. You wouldn't have to give out any money. They've been using this as fraudulent means to make themselves huge, which they've done, these government entities and banksters and stuff. So this trust actually pays all of your debts, but nobody tells you that because the elite consider those assets to be their property, and the Federal Reserve System is responsible for the management of those investments. Yeah, this is how broad I get, people. I mean, I've known about this for a long time, and I just cover all kinds of ground. I can't help it. It's just my mind. I got to know everything. Well, some stuff that I'm interested in, especially when it comes to things like this that can empower us. Social Security, SSI, SSD, Medicare, and Medicaid are all financed by the trust. The government makes you pay taxes and a portion of your wages supposedly to pay for these services, which they can borrow at any time for any reason, since they cannot access the Cesta Que Trust to finance their wars or to bail out Wall Street and their patron corporations. At your arraignment or trial, the judge will ask you if you are the named individual with the all caps birth name, which is the false person, and they call it the straw man, on the complaint, and your natural response will be to answer in the affirmative, like, yes, that is me. But no, you don't want to do that. But that is exactly what you don't want to do. You do not want to admit that you are this corporate entity, ever. Don't do it. And when we start taking the power back, we're going to make them run for their lives. They basically won't have jobs anymore except to do common law stuff, which is man against man. You know, if someone got harmed or trespassed against, that's the only thing, that's the only court that is lawful for us to be in. Remove your birth certificate and respond to him by stating, basically take out your birth certificate. You want to take this with you to court and respond to him by stating, I am making a special limited appearance on behalf of the defendant who is right here. And then you hold up your birth certificate and state the following. As I understand this process, Judge, the county attorney or police officer has leveled a criminal charge with the clerk and against the trust using the all caps name, which is what, you just sound off that name, I guess, that appears on this birth certificate. The use of capital letters is dictated by the U.S. Printing Style Manual, which explains how to identify a corporation. The clerk, who is the administrator of the Cesta Que Trust, then appointed you judge as the trustee for the trust. And since neither of you can be the beneficiary, that leaves me, and therefore you are my trustee. So as my trustee, I instruct you to discharge this entire matter with prejudice and award the penalties for these crimes to be paid to me in compensation and damages for my false arrest. So, yeah, I mean, that's basically what this is about. Note, the law of trust dictates that an administrator, trustee, and beneficiary cannot serve two positions in a trust. So a trustee cannot be a beneficiary too. The trustee judge has no alternative but to honor your demands, but you have to get this right and act with confidence. You can't go in there half-heartedly. I suggest you learn a bunch of junk before you attempt these things, because they could throw questions or comments out to you, and you just have to keep standing on what you know from these words. And they're going to give you some more words of power in just a minute too. Very, very important. They try to segue to try to trap you into admitting that you are under their rule, but you are not. No man or woman is in this existence ever. So we need to get this stuff right. Okay. Yeah, you really need to know this information well so that you can't be hoodwinked or confused by either of them, because they will start using legal jargon on you and you won't comprehend it. So you just stick to the script and you keep going over this stuff until, they acquiesce to your request. So they will or may attempt to play some mind games with you if you display any doubt, stammer, or display a lack of confidence. Appearances, the pomp and majesty of it, of these pseudo courts is totally for your benefit, and it's intended to invoke fear and intimidation. Basically, they want to scare people. So you got to scare them with your words, because court, you play ball on a court, and it's a game of words. That's you play ball that way. And it's like swords, but it's words. If you show fear or intimidation, you get a pony ride. Basically, they're going to take you for a ride. If the county attorney begins to act too cocky with you, or, whoever, you can take the wind out of his sails by asking him to produce the 1040 for the case. If he denies the need to do such a thing, inform him that you will be taking care of that for him ASAP, as soon as possible. He may move for a discharge at that point because you're a little too dangerous or too smart. The last thing that prosecutor wants is the IRS examining his files for the last 7 years, because he makes money on every conviction, but he doesn't pay taxes on them as a rule. He usually only declares the salary he receives. Citations. The citation process can be handled much easier through the mail. And I did this. I had gotten a citation, and this was months ago. And I sent it back. You got to send it back within 3 days that you do not consent and you do not wish to contract. But the clerk of court is ignorant, and they sent me another letter back stating, that I have to appear before court and blah, blah, blah. Well, I sent that letter back and told them I did not consent and I was not contracting with them. And then I didn't ever hear from them. So what I'm going to do is call and find out what happened. They set a date for, this month, and I've got to go check it out. But I'm going to go do this. I'm like, you know what? You are not going to get me. There's no way. No way, because there's no harm done. That's how, you can get out of this, basically, but it has to be a wordplay. So anyway, when a police officer issues you a citation, he is actually requesting you to contract with him. That's why they want your signature. They say, just to, they tell you this line, oh, just so that you understand. No. You know what I did? I put an X and I put under duress on the ticket. Yeah, that's what I did. So, because he's actually got a gun, so he's holding you at gunpoint, basically, making you sign this document. Yeah, these things are taken seriously, but to them, it's a game to get you and your money in their pocket. And that's it. That's all they want is your money. And they've been doing this for a long time, and it's time to take the power back and get some teeth and bite them where it hurts. Anyway, he is alleging that you violated a corporate regulation in writing, which we don't really fall under corporate rule. We are men and women. And being so, that means we are just under God. God is the above us, And then under God, it's us. And then all of these other servants, these are civil servants, police officers, sheriffs, judges, lawyers, they're all civil servants, but they have been pretending to be over us. And they have, because we've been ignorant. So we got to take the power back, which you have accepted by signing and thus requires you to respond. The police officer is instructed to explain that your signature is merely an acknowledgement that you received a copy of the citation. See, this is what there's a trickery. But in actuality, your signature is notification to the court and judge that you have accepted or consented to offer the contract, which also grants the judge consent, personam, and subject matter jurisdiction over you and the case. See how they do that? They just tricked you big time because you didn't know. You can cancel that contract by rescinding your consent. The Federal Truth in Lending Act provides that any party to a contract may rescind his consent within 3 business days of entering into such a contract. So across the face of the citation, you should print or type in large print. And David Straight says, write it in red. But I even say, purple is the highest power. That's royalty. And you and I are basically royalty. We own all of the land, air, and water. We have dominion over the earth. It says it in the Bible. Man has dominion over the earth and all things within the earth and of the water. And we have been acting as if we don't have any power because we're just ignorant. We don't know. So they've been ruling over us. Let's make it stop. Okay, this is what you write. I do not accept this offer to contract, and I do not consent to these proceedings. I've written it a little bit differently based on what David Straight said. So, I think as long as you get that contract, no contract thing, then I'm sure it's basically the same thing. Use blue ink for admiralty, which is, official in their court, or purple ink for royalty. Now, David Straight teaches you red. Red is blood. Red is common law, he says. But I think blood is a little bit, it just means you're living. But I kind of, I don't know about the blood thing. But I think purple is probably the best. And we need to walk around with purple pens, y'all, because when you're signing in black, I mentioned this in another video, when you're signing in black, it means you're dead. Black means dead to these people. And, that just shows you how deep true symbolism goes in our society that we were never taught. It goes even deeper, but, that's another video. Admiralty is the court, and royalty represents your sovereignty. And so they say don't even use the word sovereignty a lot in court. At least David Straight is teaching this, because they've taken these terms and they've turned them into corporate terms. So it's really good to get a law dictionary. Black's Law Dictionary is one that most people highly recommend to learn about these terms. And then you can really start educating yourself and sinking your teeth in. Either way is appropriate. Sign your signature underneath in blue or purple ink and in front of a notary and under your signature type without prejudice, UCC 1-308. That's their universal commercial code. This is another way to declare that you may not be held responsible for this contract pursuant to the Uniform Commercial Code. Serve canceled citation back on the clerk of court along with the certificate of service by certified mail, which I did. I did my certified return receipt requested because that's important. And there's also a way you got to send it with the actual post office. Like there's a postal service and there's a post office. You want to do the one that's not in the admiralty law. And I can't remember. It's a lot of information. It's hard to maintain some of this stuff sometimes. This kills the citation, removes your consent, and removes the jurisdiction of the court all at the same time. It's that simple. But like I said, I got another letter back. Once I sent that in, I signed mine, no contract, and I did not consent. And the clerk of court sent me an official letter. You must be in court on this date. So I signed that. I said, I do not consent or contract. And I sent that back. And I haven't, it's been crickets ever since. So we'll see, We'll see what happens. Anyway, all right. A note, a certificate of service is a letter that first identifies the citation and then defines how and when you return the document to the court and is signed. If not denied, it becomes a truth in commerce by tacit procuration. Sorry. Remember to keep a copy of everything in case the clerk attempts to trash your response, which they probably did, which certainly will not happen with a certificate of service, or if it is mailed back by the notary. The notary is actually a deputy secretary of state and is more powerful than the court clerk. Summons and lawsuits. The summons process, whether it is defined a civil or criminal action, is once again an offer to contract, despite what words are used to command your appearance or response. It too can be canceled just by the following. The same procedure as the citation process above. $1 million lawsuit is no different than a citation, and both can be canceled. Hard to believe it, isn't it? Retired judge and whistleblower Judge Dale, and he has a link here for the PDF for stuff. Establishing your living standing in court. There are times when a living man or woman finds themselves in court before a judge, either unwittingly or by force, despite not giving their consent and without having caused injury to any living man or woman. This is very important right here to also know. If you go before any judge, you want to ask them what harm has been committed. They have to show you. There's the burden of proof falls on them to show you where there was a harm committed in any instance. And because really, like I said, the common law courts are the only ones that should be standing on the land, because it's a trespass court, and it involves man to man. And when one man trespasses against another or steals something. So this admiralty law court, they do not have jurisdiction over living men and women. They don't, but they've been getting us because we're part of a corporation with the capital letters. So if you know this, you can always ask the judge, show me the harm that I have caused, and whatever their accusations are, please show me where I've harmed someone. Although an administrative court, which it has no jury, is a dispute resolution service for consenting parties, living men and women who consent to joinder or to be a part of this accusatory action with a dead legal fiction, with the corporation court, you're consenting. That's all that is. Like when you go and you say, yes, I'm here as a living person, even though they're going to make you dead. That's how they get you. You admit that you are the all caps name, that they're as soon as you get to court and you go before the judge, the first thing they're going to do is read off your name. You decline because that is not you. That is their corporate entity that is tricking you to admit that you're going to joinder with them in this whole proceeding. It is also a place of ancient satanic magic. See this? I've been talking about this. Black magic runs the world right now. This is why living people are summoned like you're dead. So as if to magically appear in court, becoming dead. They basically are summoning you back from the dead to appear in court, because they declared you dead the day that your feet got put on the stamp that's on your birth certificate, which they took your soul at that point. This is all going back to the Vatican and the Royal Crown and the United States, Washington, D.C., all these 3 city-states. So yeah, they basically made us dead people when the day we're born, and then the feet go to paper. Like they put the stamp of our soul, S-O-L-E, listen to the sound. The sound of a word carries the weight and the meaning. It is not by the spelling, it is by the sound. So S-O-L-E is S-O-U-L, same thing. Okay, As if to magically appear in court, becoming dead. Historically, a judge wearing a black robe is a high priest of Baal in the temple of Baal, enforcing Babylonian Talmudic law. The judge, or the black robed devil, requires an offering from those who appear from being summoned in the temple. The priest of Baal makes a judgment upon the one who has given up their life. And in doing so, the priest delivers a curse, in ancient times death, in modern times debt, which almost sounds the same. And the victim is sacrificed. The word bailiff derives from Baal, because the bailiff is the servant of the high priest of Baal. The Black's Law Dictionary in this context is a book of black magic. You see how they do that? Black's Law, death law is what that means. It's not just someone's last name, y'all. However, if you do not wish to be presumed dead, suffering judgment, you must establish your living rights, otherwise you will have none. Maxim of law: one who does not establish their rights has none. And that is what we've been seeing as they steamroll us throughout all of our lives, because we don't know about this stuff. This is why I'm sharing this little tidbit, a juicy morsel on my feed, because I want people to really start learning all kinds of stuff. I mean, a broad spectrum. That's what you're going to get on my channel, broad spectrum of information. To establish your living standing in court. Your Honor, I am a living being. I humbly ask for remedy. At this point, if you behave with honor and respect, you may be dismissed, but the judge is not out of options. Most likely they're not going to, because they want your money and they're going to try to every angle to trick you. He can leave the court, he or she can leave the court and re-enter now in a higher court under canon admiralty maritime jurisdiction. You're basically under that to begin with, but they're just gonna, I guess this canon is a different thing, but I don't know. So you must establish your standing again, but in a higher manner. Your Honor, I am a living being. That means when they come and they start addressing you, this is all you say. Your Honor, I am a living being. The flesh lives and the blood flows. Your Honor, I humbly ask for cure and maintenance. So see, they're going, oh my gosh, how does this person know all this stuff? But now the judge may be totally freaked out at this point. If they don't dismiss you and decide to keep going and they leave the room again, they come back as a priest. So you are now in the temple, and now the court is under Talmudic law, which is very rare indeed, because the judge is at the limit of his authority and vulnerable. So you must establish your living standing appropriately by addressing him as follows. Your Honor, I wish to establish that I am a living being. The flesh lives and the blood flows, and we are sovereign, and nothing stands between myself and the divine. That's it. Game is over. You control the court and can dismiss the judge. So here we go. UCC is the power of a fine. So when they want to get your money from fines, they use this UCC thing. Okay. And I guess, so this is number 2, Admiralty Maritime, which is power of jail, and Talmudic is power of death. So you see how they're doing all this stuff. The UCC is a uniform commercial code. The administrative courts are administrating the international bankruptcy, and therefore they operate in the international admiralty maritime commercial jurisdiction, the law of the sea, and are bound by the uniform commercial code. The UCC is a colorable version of admiralty. Colorable admiralty jurisdiction is known as statutory jurisdiction. Color of law is defined, I guess, as mere semblance of a legal right. Semblance is not, means it's fake. It means it's just, oh, we're just going to fake them out. Mere semblance of a legal right. Legal is another term that they use for corporate law. So this is what's been determined in this. So what I've been learning about all these statutes and laws and things is that the opinion of a court ruling is how they've been ruling anything. Like the opinion of a judge is how they've been making laws. It's ridiculous. Like, upheld in court, and then that stands. So all these attorneys and lawyers out here, they have to learn case law. Because it's just, there's nothing else real to it. It's all fluff. And in order for the UCC to be implemented, there had to be a provision requiring it to be in harmony with the common law. This requirement may be found at UCC section 1-103, which when invoked along with UCC section 1-207, and the new one is UCC section 1-308, represents a powerful method of protecting your natural rights from encroachment by the government. We gotta learn this stuff. Let's learn this stuff. The recourse appears in the Uniform Commercial Code at 1-103.6, which says the code is complementary to the common law, which remains in force except where displaced by the code. A statute should be construed in harmony with the common law unless there is a clear legislative intent to abrogate the common law. UCC 1-103-.6. Okay, this is the strategy we use in court. The code recognizes common law. If it did not recognize common law, the government would have to admit that the corporate state is bankrupt and is completely owned by its creditors, but it is not expedient to admit this. So the code was written so as not to abolish common law entirely. So basically, we can get them on the hook with common law. Therefore, if you have made a sufficient, timely, and explicit reservation of your rights at 1-207, the new one is 1-308, you may then insist that the statutes be construed in harmony with the common law. If the charge is a traffic ticket, you may demand that the court produce the injured person. And usually it's not, because it's usually a seatbelt thing or it's a speeding thing or whatever violation. So just demand that the court produce the injured person who has filed a verified complaint. If, for example, you were charged with failure to buckle your seatbelt, you may ask the court, who was injured as a result of your failure to buckle up? However, if the judge won't listen to you and just moves ahead with the case, which they probably will because they try to steamroll over people, railroading them, then you will want to read to them the last sentence of 103.6, which states, the code cannot be read to preclude common law section. Tell the judge, Your Honor, I can sue you under common law for violating my rights under the Uniform Commercial Code. I have a remedy under the UCC to reserve my rights under the common law. I have exercised the remedy, and now you must construe this statute in harmony with the common law. To be in harmony with the common law, you must come forth with the damaged party. If the judge insists on proceeding with the case, just act confused and ask this question. Let me see, I would not say understand, I would say comprehend. You do not want to stand under anyone. Do not use this term, understand. Let me see if I comprehend, Your Honor. Has this court made a legal determination that sections 1-207 and the new section 1-308 and 1-103 of the Uniform Commercial Code, which is the system of law you're operating under, are not valid law before this court? Specifically, you're specifying that particular court, which that judge is trying to represent. Now the judge is in a jam. How can the court throw out one part of the code and uphold another? If they answer yes, then you say, I put this court on notice that I am appealing your legal determination. Of course, the higher court will uphold the code on appeal. The judge knows this, so once again, you have boxed them into a corner. This is a quick 4-sentence method. This method, according to multiple sources, was used by a woman in Los Angeles at an initial appearance in an administrative court with no jury and no injured party to close the books on the charge. When you close the case, they leave you alone. The first sentence expressly declines consent. This prevents the presumption of consent, which I feel like this little short thing is probably the best method. The second sentence declines the offer of contract. The administrative court is a dispute resolution service by contract. The third sentence declines to become surety via the artificial legal person named debtor on the debt money system. The fourth sentence demands a bond against harm. Court officials hold insurance bond bonds which can be called upon to indemnify anyone they may damage. So you can sue them for damages. And here we go. In the first opening sentence, I do not consent to these proceedings. The second sentence, your offer is not accepted. So basically, these are going to be read one after another. Your offer is not accepted. I do not consent to being surety for this case and these proceedings. I demand the bond be immediately brought forward so that I can see who will indemnify me if I am damaged. At this point, the judge reportedly dismissed the case for this woman in LA and told her to leave the court. Someone observing this method repeated it and was also released. After the second case, the judge told everyone to go home and closed the court for the day, leaving the court because they're so ashamed that they cannot squeeze the money and put the fear in the people. All we need to do is not be fearful. We need to stand in our rights. And that's all this is. So if court officials expect someone to use this method, they will typically reschedule the case to the end of the day so that others won't see this. They don't want witnesses witnessing this. But guess what? We're spreading this stuff like wildfire. Yeah, I say go out, you have to use yourself as a guinea pig though, and you have to learn some stuff. And knowing some of the legal terms from the Black's Law Dictionary will be beneficial in these kinds of incidences. Judges do not want this method known, and bar attorneys will not and cannot do this for you. They won't really help you because they're bound to all of that admiralty stuff and they love making their money. So nobody's ever going to help you. If you enter their court intending to do this, you must do it for yourself as soon as possible. Do not let them distract and dissuade you, because if you agree to engage in any way, in any manner, if you consent to anything that they present before you, then they will try to get you. You're going to be on the hook. If you engage in any issue they attempt to raise, you are consenting to their jurisdiction. You are consenting. So basically there needs to be a comma right here. Any issue they attempt to raise, comma, you are consenting to their jurisdiction, and you will lose, because at that point they will railroad you and make an example of you. But instead, the opposite needs to happen. And you just need to repeat after, not these sentences, just repeat, see at the bottom. Keep it simple, do not add anything. Say only the 4 sentences. I'm going to do this. If necessary, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, because they have no power. They have 0 power over us, and we've been consenting and acquiescing to contract with them. It's that simple. Memorize all 4 sentences or keep a copy. I'm just going to take my little notes. I'm going to type up these notes and just take this to the courthouse and be like, okay, this is this. Bam, here you go. There you go. That's it. All right. So I encourage everybody to go check this out. I'm going to leave this little exercise in the description box. You guys can check this out and, share any information you may come across, because, hey, we're here to help each other. That's the whole point in doing all of these little exercises. And this is just for entertainment purposes only. How exciting is that? All right. We'll see you on the next one.